Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe, and I have to always let you know if you're out there struggling right now, please reach out for help. You don't have to suffer in silence. Today's guest is Jason L., sober since October 5th, 2015, a husband, a father, and a man who spent nearly 3 decades in and out of addiction before finding a new way to live. After 28 years of trying to get sober, through treatment centers, halfway houses, and even incarceration, Jason reached a turning point where something finally clicked. Today, he's deeply involved in recovery through both AA and DAA, helping start new meetings, serving at a national level, and carrying a message of hope to others who are still struggling. Jason's wife, Margaret, also shared her experience, strength, and hope on the show, so I'm really looking forward to hearing the other half of the story. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. Hey, Jason, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, man, I'm so grateful for you and appreciative that you're willing to come on and share your story, man.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up, Jason?
Well, I was the firstborn of 3. I was born in middle of the state, Illinois, on the Mississippi River, and work took the family to California when I was 6. My younger brother, Joe, he was 4, and my sister was a newborn baby at the time. So I spent my teenage years in Southern California, and I got myself into a little bit of trouble in Southern California. You know, it's some drinking trouble, and you know, my parents saw the writing on the wall, and they tricked me into an airplane ride to Missouri and left me in military school. It was one of 4 high schools that I did not finish. I actually never made it past 10th grade. So 4 high schools in 2 years, and my troubles kept following me. You know, it was discipline, like alcohol-related trouble, and as well as behavioral trouble. You know, I was doing a bunch of stuff I shouldn't be doing, so. My parents thought it was a good idea that they would move the family back to the Midwest and get back to the Midwest roots. My dad was born and raised in the city of Chicago. My mom was born and raised in Quincy, Illinois, a very small river town. And, you know, there's a different way of life in the Midwest. And they thought that if they could just relocate me here and we can have this new family dynamic, that everything would be okay. And everything was not okay. Because I came with the family, you know what I mean? So, but
I was going to say, it reminds me, you know, Jason's like, no matter where I go, there I am. You know?
Absolutely. But
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I was just going to backtrack a little bit. The growing up was good. You know, it's good, loving parents. You know, family of 5. We had everything that we needed and most of what we wanted. They gave me everything that I needed to succeed in life. And when I was young, you know, I did okay. I never did very well in school. I was never very good at discipline. I did not like authority much. But I did okay. You know, I went through school. I played sports. I played basketball, football, baseball, and I excelled at everything that I tried at. And then around the age of 13, you know, some other things got more important to me than going to school and playing sports. And it began a long history of drinking and getting in trouble and all kinds of stuff. So, but like I said, we ended up back here in Illinois. I think I was 20 years old. Well, let me go back a little bit farther, Joe. So, after military school, we went back to California. Then they moved us to the Midwest. And my parents still, I was still doing here what I was doing there. So they put me in my very first treatment center in 1987. I was 17 years old. I was in treatment for 90 days. And I came out of treatment and with the desire not to do well. I didn't want to misbehave anymore. I just wanted to straighten up and fly right. And I remember I was sneaking beers out of the refrigerator and drinking them upstairs in my bedroom. And my mom had found a bunch of empty cans of beer and sat me down at the kitchen table. And I remember her asking me, she goes, "So what is it that makes you an alcoholic?" And I can remember looking back in that moment, I had absolutely no idea. But I just spent 90 days in a treatment center, so I better come up with something. So I'm telling my mom, well, it's when I drink alone. It's when I drink in the mornings. It's when my drinking gets in the way of my personal life. All these things I hear on TV. And she was kind of satisfied with that answer. But the truth was, I had no idea. It took me a very long time till I had any kind of understanding of what my problem really was.
That's amazing that even your mom seeing it at that point asked that particular question, and you remember it, and I can only imagine. I know at 17, I think we're probably close to the same age, Jason, because 1987 is when I graduated high school, and
I would have been 88. So yeah.
So we're around the same age, and 17. I can imagine you don't know why am I like you said, you wanted to just fly right, fly straight, but it just couldn't figure out why. I guess one of the questions I have is like, what was the attitude like growing up, like maybe towards alcohol and drugs in your family? I mean, was drinking common? Was it, did you see it a lot? I mean, what kind of led you to that 13 of trying?
Well, so a very hard rule in my family was work hard, play hard. So I was in and around alcohol a lot. My parents would have parties, and they would have people over, cookouts, and they're all drinking and having a good time. And one of the rules that they had, like I told you, I played every sport there was available to us, even though my parents, they were not real financially well off, and some of these sports were pretty expensive. So one of the rules they always had for us was, hey, you can try anything you want. The only one rule that we have is once you start, there's no quitting. And that was pretty good as far as sports goes, but it didn't work well with my drinking. So I got together with some friends, and we're like, yeah, let's try some of this beer. And we started drinking the beer, and I get this warm, fuzzy feeling, and all of a sudden, this was it, man. I was able to be who I wanted to be. I was able to say what I wanted to say. I was a little bit taller, a little bit wittier, and I had arrived, you know what I mean? And I got that feeling from alcohol, and I wanted that as much as I could. And it was on. I was 13 years old when I first had the experience with alcohol, and from that point forward, it was when are we going to get it, who's getting it, how are we going to get it, and where are we going to drink it. And it was in the beginning, it was usually the weekends because it's hard for 13 or 14-year-old to drink anywhere else. But we found ways, and we were always in the parks or somebody's basement or whatever, backyard.
Man, it was that time. I think when we wanted it, we could always get it. Always, every weekend. I just remember. I look back on that because I have now kids. My daughter's going to be a senior, and I'm thinking, And nothing like me. Nothing like me. I spent my whole junior year drinking every weekend, and I was grain alcohol and fruit punch, man. That was my drink. That's what I swear that's why I'm blind today. I think that, but no, I'm just kidding. But uh um so how did so you're 17, and just got out of treatment. Your mom kind of sits you down and says, what's the deal? What kind of happened from there?
So I was in my fourth high. This was my fourth high school. This high school here in Illinois, and I was only there 3 months because what happened now. Now I'm in a different place. I don't have a whole lot of friends, so I'm feeling really like I don't fit in anywhere. So drinking was becoming more and more important to me, and I missed home, and for me, home was Southern California. So um, I scraped up whatever money that I could. I stole a little bit of my little sister's money that she had saved. I knew where it was. I took that. I took some money off my dad's dresser. And, back then, you didn't need to have as much credentials as you do now to buy an airline ticket. So I bought an airline ticket under a fake name. I took the family vehicle. I drove it to O'Hare, left in remote parking, and I had one of my buddies that I was in treatment with. Uh, After I landed in California, hey, call my dad, tell him that the Suburban is in remote parking 5, whatever parking spot it was in. And I spent the next year back in Southern California living at a friend's house. So yeah, I couldn't be here anymore. Feeling like I was feeling, I had to be around some people.
And well, it's crazy. I know people, especially younger folks, couldn't even imagine how you got on an airplane and under an assumed name. And it's like
Yeah.
but it was so much looser back then. It was so. What what did you recognize that you had a problem at this point, or did you kind of just think, "Yeah, I'm a kid, I'm young."
There was it was a little bit of both of that, Joe. I knew I was young, but I knew at that time that I didn't quite drink like my friends drank. As we know now, once I started, it was very difficult for me to stop. And these guys would be stopped or passed out, and I'm finishing what they left on the table. But it's funny. Let me tell you. So I ran away from Illinois to California, and I lived with a good friend that I went to high school with, and his father was a pastor of Calvary Chapel. So I got involved. We were going to Bible studies like on Mondays and Thursdays, and we would sit through multiple services at church on Sunday. And I didn't even swear much back then, and I wasn't drinking, and life was good, and I was really happy in that moment. But I missed my family, and I didn't talk to them for a long time. I was there for a year, and then through little conversations with my uncle and then my dad, he offered me a job at his company. If I would move back, it would really make my mom happy. So I did. I came back. I think I was 19 years old when I came back, and I've been back ever since.
So you got back to Illinois. Now you're back in Illinois. How is did you and you hadn't really, I guess you kind of sobered up somewhat in California, and
Not intentionally.
yeah.
It was like an environmental thing. I mean, these guys weren't drinking. We would hang out. We would do lots of fun stuff, even crazy stuff. But alcohol wasn't really involved at all. I had another group of friends in California, and every now and then we'd get together and we would drink, but not with the people that I was living with. It was it's funny because I knew that was a time in my life where I was happy and things seemed good. And I remember when this was like 10 years later, I'm back in Illinois, and alcoholism has got its grips on me. And I remember telling my sister, I've been to multiple treatment centers, and I told my sister, I said, you know what? I need to go back and live with Raul. I said, that's the only place that I've ever been that I was able to get well. That's where I need to go, because that was the solution. And we know that's not true, but in that state that I was in, that's what I told her. That's where I need to go.
But it's you were really surrounded by community, and people who weren't drinking. God, I'm sure, was involved. When you're living with a pastor, you're kind of.
It was very much so. And, I was very connected to people and to God. I began this relationship that I never had before with God, and I was on solid ground for about a year of my life. And this is after my first treatment center, and after drinking, after the treatment center. So it's crazy when I look back at it, but yeah.
But that's like when we say we're planting seeds, and that's kind of like a seed in your life. I'm assuming from as you're drinking. I assume when you got back to Illinois is when you started drinking again. How did that all happen?
Yeah, I started drinking again. I moved back here. I moved in with my mom and dad, and then it's time to move out of the house. Me and one of my buddies moved out of the house, and we had my first apartment, and we drank. Boy, did we drink! I'd get paid on Friday, and my money would be gone by Monday, because we'd be, shooting pool at the bar or going downtown to the bars, and it was just on. I was basically working to drink, and just hooting and hollering, having fun, and then trouble started showing up. a lot of it, it's I was introduced to cocaine when I was probably 15, just one little line, and I was able to drink a lot more. And then I didn't seek after it, but it was offered to me again later, like when I was 19, maybe. Did it, drank a little more. That was great. And then a few years later than that, somebody said, "Hey, you want to buy an 8-ball?" Okay. And then it was game on. I mean, I was, holy cow. I wouldn't smoke it though. A lot of my friends kept telling me, "Oh, you should try smoking it." No, I snort it. I refused to smoke it until finally one day somebody asked me, "You want to cook up the rest of it?" And I said, "Okay." And I took my first hit of crack, and man, holy cow! It's we talk about with alcoholism, the physical piece, that once I start, I can't stop. And crack was a whole nother level for me. It's once I started, it wasn't when it's gone, it's over. It was when it's gone, I'm going to figure out how to get more. I've taken cars that were not mine, smash and grabs. I'm a multiple convicted felon, and I would just go until I couldn't get any more, one way or another. I was stealing, doing anything I could to get more. And living that kind of lifestyle landed me in jail a couple of times. I usually had a warrant in one or more counties at any given time, from the age 20 to 44. Finishing my sentence in one county, and I'm getting booked out of that county, and they say, "Oh no, you can't go anywhere. You got to hold in this county. We're gonna move you over here." Okay, but I remember it. So I got in trouble. And I was sitting down with 2 detectives in the jail, and I'd been in there for maybe 10 days, and they kept trying to get me to give up my dealer. And I wasn't about to do that, but I had these 2 detectives sitting on the other side of the table from me. And the one detective says, "So you're telling me that you basically steal to support your drug habit?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, how much cocaine do you do?" And I said, "As much as I can get." And he started laughing, but the other detective wasn't laughing. He looked at me and he said, "That's probably the most honest answer I've ever heard." I said, "It's true." And he said, "Would you be interested in going to treatment?" And I said, "Yes." And that, I think I discharged, well, they transferred me from the county jail to a treatment center in shackles. So I was still technically a prisoner of the state of Illinois, but I was in treatment. I was released for treatment. So it was my get out of jail free card. I didn't want to live the way I was living anymore, but I wasn't quite done. I wasn't quite done. So I did the 28 days in the treatment center, and they highly encouraged me going to amends. It was a state halfway house, state run halfway house. Had counselors there and stuff. So I reluctantly extended my stay in the 28-day program. I was there like 35 days, and a bed opened in the halfway house, the men's halfway house. So I went there, and the rent was pretty cheap. If I remember, it was like $125 a week. They wanted you to be out working. So I spent most of my day just putzing around town, hanging out, not doing much of anything. And you had to be back for dinner. So, and the weekends were kind of free. So I went up to my sister's house, which was about, 45-minute drive. And I didn't have to be back till nighttime. So I said, well, let's get a little vodka. Okay. You have a couple of shots of vodka, and it's like, let's get some Coke. Okay. And by 5 p.m., I was wasted. I mean, we drank so much. It was never my plan. My plan was just to have a little bit in the morning. It would be cool. I'll go back to my halfway house and nobody will know anything. Man, we got down. I was basically going down there to pick up my stuff. And we got out of the car, and my counselor saw me in the parking lot from inside the building, and he met me at the door. He saw me coming. And he said, okay, he goes, let's go up the service elevator and we'll get your stuff and get you out of here. You don't need to see anybody like this. Okay. And that started me on an 8-month run of doing everything I get my hands on: Coke, meth, heroin, obviously alcohol. And about 8 months later, I had lost like 60 pounds. I was down to 130 pounds. You see my ribs. And I was living we're squatting in a foreclosed house and basically stealing to survive. We burned the house didn't have any heat, so we burned all the wood furniture in the fireplace. It had no plumbing, so we had a 5-gallon bucket in the detached garage, and that was the bathroom, and that's how I was living. And what happened was about 8 months since they asked me to leave the halfway house. I called the new intake coordinator at the treatment center was one of my counselors when I was in there. And so I called to see about coming back to treatment. And she said, man, what's going on? Why do you want to come back? And I said, listen, her name. And I said, I really need to come back. And she said, okay. She could hear it in my voice that, that I didn't need a vacation. I was in deep trouble, and I needed to come back. And so I came back there, did the 28 days again. I was scared to death to come back up here where I did all my damage. So I ended up staying with another friend that I was in the halfway house with that had an apartment in town. He let me crash on his couch for a week until I was able to get into the sober house. And not a sober house, halfway house. And so I was in the halfway house this time, new resolve. And I was going to meetings, and I had a sponsor, and I was staying real busy. I was there for 13 months. And I was chairing the meeting on Tuesday nights and Friday nights, and I was going to a meeting just about every day, and I was chasing around my sponsor like he owed me money, and we were going everywhere. We're going to different towns to support different meetings and sharing. I stayed so busy I didn't have time to do anything else. And me and a couple of the guys that I was in the halfway house with, I was there for 13 months. One of the other guys was there about the same time as me, and another guy right behind us. We got the great idea that we're going to leave and we're going to start our own little sober house, just the three of us. And we did. And none of us left there sober. One of my buddies, he actually died. One of them is living in the city of Chicago now, and from what I heard, he's doing okay. But me, I convinced myself that I didn't have too much trouble with alcohol. If I stay away from the cocaine, heroin, and meth, I'll be okay. And it took about 5 years, and whiskey brought me to the death's doorstep the same way that any of that other crap did. And I didn't know what to do anymore. And I was, it's funny, I was working, I had a pretty good job, and I was working for this guy, and it was a factory. And he would routinely ask me, "You been drinking?" I'd say no, because it's coming out my pores. I would drink. I would get home from work and I'd pour whiskey in a coffee mug, and I had my coffee mug in one hand and a Coca-Cola in the other, and I would just drink till I passed out. And when I came into work the next day, I would, it's coming out my pores so you can smell it. And his dad was an alcoholic, and he said, "You smell like my dad used to smell." And his dad died of alcoholism. And I said, "No, I haven't been drinking. I promise, I'm sober." And then I go home and do that over and over and over again. And it got so bad, I went to the doctor and I'd tell him, I get these shakes and I got this anxiety, and they gave me the lowest dose of Xanax that they would give me. And I said, "Can I get a higher dose?" And she's like, "Well, you never had this before, so we're going to start you low." It's like 0.25s or something like that. So I'd eat my 1 month supply in a week just to take the shakes away in the morning. And I called and asked him if I had some more. "No, you can't have any more." So it didn't take long before I figured out that, hey, if I just take a couple shots of whiskey before work, I'll be okay. So I started that for a little while. And then, I was the manager in the warehouse. So I had 40 people working under me. So I had my own area, my own private space. So I just brought the whiskey with me to work, had it in my desk. And there was a day where he asked me yet again, "Hey, you been drinking?" And I said, "Yep." And he goes, "Man, you can't be here." I said, "Come on, man. I could do this job better drunk than anybody could do it here sober." And he said, "No, you can't be here." And I tried to pick a fight with him. And needless to say, that was the end of that job. And a couple of days of just being 24 hours drunk, I decided I need to go to detox again. And so I packed a bag. This woman that I was living with, I packed a bag, and I called my sister and another friend to come get me, to take me to detox. And they did. And the only thing I had in that duffel bag, I had a belt, like a pair of socks, some condoms, and my bottle of Xanax. And they took it all away, man. They took it all away. But I don't know what the hell I was packing for. And so I'm in this treatment center, and I'm about to get not treatment center, detox. I'm sorry. So I'm about to be discharged from detox, and there's a guy coming into detox, and he's waiting to get checked in, and I'm waiting to get processed out. And he's asking me, "So where are you going?" And I told him, I said, "I don't know, man." I said, "My sister lives up here in northwest suburbs," and he's like, "You should go to that sober house in Wakanda." I said, "There's a sober house over there?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's an Oxford house." That's where I'm from. That's where my daughter lives, and I had no idea it was there. It's just one of those weird moments in passing that this guy told me something. And so I went to my sister's house and I made the phone call. I found this place that he was talking about, and sure enough, it's only about a mile from where I live here now. It's not here anymore, but it was. So I got into that sober house, and you want me to keep going on this? Okay, so I get into the sober house, and I think it would house a maximum of 8 guys, and we usually had about 6 guys there. We had one shower. 6 guys would never work for a woman's house. But yeah, we were a little bit crammed in there. But so these guys, I mean, it was a sober house. So these guys, the number one priority here is you got to stay sober. Okay. And so if you're sober and you're paying your rent, you can stay. Okay. And I was there about 4 months. And man, listen, I'm done. I don't want to drink anymore. My daughter is not talking to me anymore. My parents are not talking to me. I'm pretty much disconnected from everybody. My new family is these guys I'm in the sober house with. And I'm thinking about it. I don't think any of them are sober today. One of them I know is passed away. But so I'm in the sober house, and part of the requirements of the sober house is that you attend at least one 12-step meeting a week. One. So, okay. So I was doing the bare minimum. Maybe sometimes I'd go to one. And I remember there was a meeting here in the same town, and I remember sitting in the back of the room thinking to myself, man, do I really want to do this crap again? Have this little pep rally, stay sober one day at a time? It doesn't work. I didn't know where else to go, so here I am. I'm sitting there not doing anything again. Now 4 months in this sober house, and I got me a little job. We always talk about a get well job. I'm making like $15 an hour, and I was literally counting screws in a bucket. That was my job. And so I got a little bit of money. I got my driver's license. My daughter's starting to talk to me again. My parents are starting to talk to me a little bit here and there. And it's a Saturday morning. All the guys from the house are gone doing something. And I got a little bit of money in my pocket. Everything's in order. You know what I mean? It was the beginning of a perfect morning. Not a cloud on the horizon. And suddenly the thought occurred, I bet I can go get a little bottle of whiskey and nobody will know. And I tell you, I didn't think that it was a really wise idea to go do that, but I was going. That idea came to me, and I grabbed my keys, and I probably shouldn't, but yep, I'm going. And I went and I got that little bottle of whiskey. And the plan I had Saturday morning, I'm gonna have this little bottle of whiskey. I'm gonna chill out. I'm gonna watch my show on TV. I'm just gonna take it easy. I'm gonna take a little nap. And when the guys all get back to the house, nobody will know. That was my plan. And that little bottle of whiskey was about half gone. I was like, oh crap, I gotta go get more. So I went right back to that same liquor store and got a handle. I drank that one. I gotta go get more. So I drank another one. And by Monday morning comes around, I went to work, and I probably reeked like booze, but I told him, I said, I'm really sick. I don't know. I had to drive there. I drove to work and told him I'm really sick. I can't stay. And on my way back, I got another handle. And by this time, the couple of guys that were at the sober house that were not working on Monday, they said, something's going on with that guy down there. Well, let's go talk to him. So my friend Jimmy poured out my last handle of whiskey, and they took me to my sister's house. And my sister gave me a Klonopin, fed me, threw me in the shower, and then put me on the couch. And that Klonopin kept me out from getting where I needed to go, but not my plan. One of the requirements of that sober house was, hey, if you relapse while you're here, you either need to go back to treatment for 30 days or go to detox. So I went to the detox route. And of course, I go into the emergency room. They get me all hooked up to everything. And I knew going in there that I didn't drink enough to detox. But it was a requirement of the house. So they discharged me at like midnight from the ER because the doctors told me that I'm not going to detox. And I tried to explain to them. I said, well, listen, it's kind of a requirement I'm in a sober house. I'm trying to stay sober. And do you think I could just stay here overnight? And they're like, no, we can't take up the bed. And they said, but we can give you this prescription for anxiety. It was like Xanax or something that they were going to give me. And I looked at the doctor. I said, listen, I just told you I'm in a sober house. And she's like, oh. And she goes, so so you don't want this prescription? I said, no, I can't take it. And she's like, oh, okay. So you don't even want me to write you one for later? I'm like, no. So I get out of there, and I come back to these guys. I mean, these guys, like I said, not a single one of them got well and stayed well. But these guys, I came back to them, and there was just this new level of desperation with me, and I didn't know what to do, and I was willing to listen to anybody, even these guys, and so they saw the sincerity in me that I was desperate and I wanted to get well, and I had nowhere to go and I didn't know what to do. The truth was I could have gone and lived at my sister's house, but that wouldn't have been good. And so they came together as a house, and they took a stand with the house manager, and who lived about an hour away, but he would come once a week for the house meeting. Because he said that I was not allowed to be there. The guy said, hey, either he's staying or we're all moving out. And that did not sit well with him. And now I'm on the phone with this guy, and he's pissed. His name was George. And I said, listen, George, I don't condone what I did. I don't think it's a good thing. I said, but I have this funny feeling it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And looking back on it, yeah, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's because now I'm back in this house, and now the requirement is you got to go to 4 meetings a week. And I was going to I'm coming back to AA I'm gonna do this AA thing. I'm gonna get me the biggest, toughest sponsor, and I go into this Friday night meeting, and there he is. He's been sober 10 years. He's like 6'5", 350 pounds. That's my guy. He'll keep me in line. And but I love, he's still sober today. He's sober like 30 years, and I love him to death. And he tried to help me the same way that he was helped, but it was the same thing that I was doing for 28 years in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, doing the 90 and 90, calling your sponsor and this, and pep rally, stay sober one day at a time. And through a series of circumstances, I ended up at a step study meeting on Tuesday night, a couple of towns over. And I walked into there, and everybody's got big books out. They got binders, and then they're talking about the steps. And I remember I was like, holy crap, these guys are talking about something I never heard before. I've been in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for 28 years. And these guys over here are talking about something different. And I remember coming back to this area and the meetings I've been going to, telling all my friends, you got to come with me to this meeting over here. They're talking about something totally different. They're talking about the steps in the big book. I'm like, so a couple of the guys I got to go with me, and maybe they didn't like hearing the truth. They didn't stick around at that meeting, but I did. And the man who was facilitating that meeting, I'm like, maybe I should ask this guy to sponsor me. But let me get some of my friends who have been sober for a really long time. They were sober for like 3 and 4 years. Let me get them to come with me and see what they think about it. And if they think it's a good idea, then I'll ask them to sponsor me. So I gave myself a good reason to procrastinate a little bit. So the next Tuesday comes around, we go to the workshop, and they come with me, and what do you guys think? And I get the nudge, hey, weren't you going to ask somebody something? And I'm just like, oh, crap. And I don't know what's with us guys, you know what I mean? Well, I was like a 12-year-old at the junior high dance, afraid to go ask this girl, because what if she says no? It's like, it's just asking a grown man to help me, you know what I mean? So I was so nervous. And I think part of the fear that I had around asking this man if he would sponsor me is that if I did, I knew I was going to have to do something. And I did. And I was right. I asked him, and he said, absolutely. He goes, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with you. Can you be here? I don't remember what day it was. And I said, yes. So I talked to my other big sponsor, and he said, like he should, hey man, I'm glad you found somebody. I hope it works out well for you. And so So I remember I was driving from my sober house to this other sober house to meet with my sponsor for this first conversation. And I wish I knew then what I know now, but I was driving over there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to find out what this alcoholism thing is because I want to know if I got it. And I had no idea that as I was driving there, his plan was to help me see the truth of what alcoholism is. You know what I mean? This first step experience that we get to have. And so I was primed, man. I was ready to go. I'm going in there with questions. I want to know what it is because I want to know if I got it. And if I got it, okay. And if I don't got it, I'm not going to waste my time with this AA stuff anymore. Sure enough, I walked out of there fully conceded in my innermost self that I have exactly what the big book describes as alcoholism. And I was just like, you know, a sense of relief. You know, I finally knew what's wrong with me. One of the first things he read to me was on page 155. It's what Bill Wilson described about Dr. Bob. It said, he had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic. It's like a light bulb went on in my head, man. I was like, holy cow, that's me. You know what I mean? I knew for a long time that I didn't drink. I didn't drink like normal people. I had no idea what alcoholism was. And so that was the beginning of this journey that I've been on. And, I thank God for him because it was, let's see, it was probably October or November of 2015. And I'm working with this sponsor and we're doing the things that I've always done. And we get to this place where, okay, now it's time for some inventory. Now, I had a Hazelton packet with a whole tons of questions in it. And, you know, all this stuff. And he told me that, you know, we're going to read it. You're going to write it. We're going to read it. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. We're going to get angry. And then we're going to burn that thing. I said, okay. Cause that's what I knew. And, this is the beginning of November. So I said, well, when do you want me to have it done? He said, well, you know what? The holidays are coming up and it would suck to bring up all these difficult emotions and trauma that you had in your life. So why don't we just wait and we'll do your fifth step on February 1st. We'll get through Thanksgiving. We'll get through Christmas and okay. And there was no way I was going to make it to February 1st doing what I was doing. I just wasn't. And I walked into this other room and I asked this man to sponsor me and he sat me down. He got me qualified. We did steps 1 and 2 in that first thing. And he told me, he goes, hey, we're going to get you through this thing quickly. He said, my job is to walk you down this path and introduce you to the power that will solve your problem. I said, okay. I was through the steps with this man before I was scheduled to do a fifth step with the other one. It was like, I wish I knew then what I know now, you know, and I thank God for good sponsorship. So we did the 1-2 and he told me a piece of information for a guy like me that was really, really important. He said, do yourself a favor and don't try and figure it out. When the big book says write, we're going to write. When it says pray, we're going to pray. I said, okay. And because I'm always the guy that wants to figure it out. I come in AA, I see the steps on the wall. We're going to do this searching and fearless moral inventory. What's that got to do with keeping me sober? You know, I'd get there and crap out every time. So we get involved in the work in the book. We make this third step decision. I remember it was a Wednesday night. And then on Thursday, I was given the instructions to write some inventory. I wrote my inventory on Saturday. We did a fifth step on Tuesday, and I made my first amends the following Saturday. And in my opinion, that's still a little too slow. I mean, this is designed to get through this stuff really quick. And the first amends I made, I had this great plan that I was going to make the amends to my mom and my dad at the same time because they're a married unit, you know, all the harms I did to them are all equal. man, God had different plans. I scheduled the appointment with both of them. They had a summer house up in Wisconsin. And I said, I can be up there Saturday morning, 8:00. So I get up there Saturday morning. My mom's sitting at the table waiting for me. We sit down, we're having a little coffee. My dad comes out from the back room. He'd just gotten out of the shower. He had been out with the boys all night before. They played golf and they went out drinking. And he said, hey, I said I'd be here. He goes, but I got to go. I hope you guys have a nice talk. Thanks, Dad. So my dad, he came back down to Illinois, and me and my mom sat there. And I'd done this before with my mom. And I said, Mom, I said, I don't even know how to start this conversation, but something this time is different. And she looked at me, she said, I know, because you're different. And boy, we started crying. Both of us crying. We talked for about an hour, and it gave her an opportunity to say some things that she needed to say to get off her chest, because there's some harms I'd done to her that I didn't even realize. But one of the things that she said to me was really, really hard to hear, because I know I hurt my mom. There was a time where my sister called my mom and said, hey, Jay's locked up in the county again. She goes, good, I could sleep. And that just kind of hit home. It's like, this is the kind of damage I'm doing to my poor mother who loves me. I'm keeping her up at night waiting for the call that I'm dead in some ditch somewhere, So she was pretty happy that I was locked up, so she had a little peace. But she told me, she goes, I used to wish that someday you would have a kid that's just like you. And she goes, but the truth is, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. That's the kind of hurt that I did to her. And wow. And and I told her, I'm putting a stake in the ground. I'm going to do my utmost never to live that way again. And the last thing I want to do is bring her any more harm. And is there anything that I can do to help ease some of that hurt that I caused you? And she didn't want anything from me. She, just like most mothers, I want to see you keep doing what you're doing. You're happy, you're healthy, you're living a productive life. You're there for your daughter, and all the stuff. And I said, okay, Mom, I could do that. Then, I spent some more time in contemplation. I talked with my sponsor a bit about it. I spent some time in prayer, and the idea came to me, and it didn't come from me. It came to me. I believe it was a divinely inspired thought that, hey, you caused your mom all these sleepless nights. Why don't you email her every morning? What a novel idea. Okay. So I started from that morning on, I started emailing my mom, just letting her know, hey, this is what's going on with my day. This is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. She loved it. She didn't ask for it, but she loved it. I was able to give her some of that peace back that I've been stealing for so long. And in 2017, November 2017, my mom was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer. And they thought it was treatable, that they thought that they could beat it. And my mom said she's going to fight the good fight. She's a nurse. That's what that was her profession. So she kind of knew what she was up against, and she was pretty positive about it. And they did everything they could, but in about 10 months, she died October 2nd, 2018. She passed away. I was 2.5 years sober. And but I tell you, from the moment that she was diagnosed, the moment she told me what she was up against, I knew it was a real possibility I was going to lose my mom. And I started praying. I started praying that, hey, if this thing comes, God, I'm going to need you more than ever. I'm going to take shelter under your wing, and I'm going to hold you close. And I started praying that thing in the beginning. And when the time came when she passed, man, I was okay. Me 20 years ago, that would have been every reason to go run it right to the ground, run it right into the ground. Hey, man, you'd be like this too if your mom died. I would have been pissed off at God and at the world that they took my mom way too young. She was only 68. And I would have justified all my bad behavior based on the external consequence. And the person I am today, I am very grateful that God gave me 2.5 years to have a relationship with my mom that never would have happened without him. That amends that I had sitting at that table in that house will be with me forever. And it changed everything. My mom finally got a son that she always deserved to have. I had a mom. Our relationship was better than it had ever been. I mean, we talk about the gifts of doing what this program asks us to do, and it's like, holy crap, it doesn't get any better than this. And it took me about a year to finally make the amends with my dad. Not because I was dodging them or ducking it, but that's just how it worked out, man. And I just look at it, I believe in a sovereign God, that he's got a plan and a purpose for everything. And it just so happened it took a year that we can finally get together and sit down and have this conversation. But during that year, it's so crazy. We get together as a family for Easter or Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. So the whole family's under the same roof. And me and my mom are as tight as can be. And me and my dad, there's still something between us. And I just didn't feel the nearness to him. And I could tell, it was just not right. The relationship had not been made right through the result, through the action of the process that's been asked me to do. And but I had that amends with my dad, and my sponsor told me going into this amends, like, listen, do you owe your dad money? I said, oh yeah, a lot of money. How much? I mean, probably $500,000. It's a lot of money. And he said, I'm going to tell you this going in. Your dad's probably going to tell you, don't worry about it. You just keep doing what you're doing. And he goes, and that's not enough. He goes, you took money that's not yours and you haven't paid it back. And so if he says that, you tell him that's not acceptable. So I did. And, I told my dad, he did. He told me, he goes, Jay, you don't owe me anything. We're even. Basically my mom was happy, and all this stuff. And he was happy because my mom was happy, and he's happy to see me doing well. So he said, you don't owe me anything. And I told him, Dad, I'm either going to pay you or you need to tell me what you want me to do with the money, because it's not my money. It's your money. He thought about it for a minute. He goes, I'll tell you what. And it's just the kind of guy. My dad's always been a very generous, loving family man. And he told me, I'll tell you what. He goes, why don't you do this? Why don't you open a savings account for your daughter and put 10, 20 bucks in there, whatever, per check into that account, and let it accumulate so that you have some money for her. I said, okay. I said, but it's your money. So if that's what you want me to do, he goes, yeah, do that. And he goes, and then you just show me the statement every now and then. I said, okay, I'll do that. But it was him doing that I was able to help my daughter buy her first car. She ran into some financial troubles with her phone, and I was able to help with that. And there's so many things that has done that has built my relationship with my dad and my daughter through the process. And it's just amazing, man. I've been rambling on for a long time. You got any questions for me, Joe?
Well, listen, man, I think you gave two beautiful examples of amends. I love the sending your mom an email. My mom got diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer, and I got sober in between when she was diagnosed to her passing. So we were able to, it was kind of my transition period, but I think that's so beautiful what the email to your mom, and moms are that way, man. That's the stuff that means something, and I love what your dad, how your dad had you make amends, and it actually ended up helping to build your relationship with your daughter. That's just good stuff. I guess my question, because I know you we kind of mentioned you're active now. You're very active, in service. And so I thought maybe if you could talk about the service that you do in DAA and that kind of stuff, if you're comfortable with that.
Sure. Yeah, the my heart, and it's not really in the surface. My heart and I don't believe I've been called into like the surface structure of Alcoholics Anonymous or even the surface structure of Drug Addicts Anonymous. My heart has always been to help the one guy. It's always been that way. I was sober, I don't know, 6 months, but I was on fire for God in the 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was running around trying to help everybody. And my sponsor, again, he was the manager of that other sober house, which was a 501c3 charity. And I didn't know it at the time. I just knew it was a sober house. And they had an open spot on their board of directors. And one of the rules in their bylaws for a board of director member was a minimum requirement of 2 years of sobriety. And he talked to the other board members. He said, hey, I want to bring this guy on as a board member. I'd only been sober 6 months. So I came there. I talked with all the guys at the board, and they're like, yes, we want you to be on the board. So I sat on the board of directors for that sober house for 5 years. Seen a lot of guys come and go. Some guys get well, some guys not get well, some guys die. But it's living life in the trenches. We talk about in the trenches. And the big book says stay on the firing lines of life. And I ask guys, hey, you know what they're talking about there? That's where lives are won and lives are lost, and that's where I want to be. And I've had some heartbreaking experiences trying to help guys, and some absolutely amazing, man. Bill says it's an experience you must not miss. He said, we know you won't want to. Bill knew it from experience, right? And once I experienced it, I'm like, holy crap, yeah, you're right. You don't want to miss this. I got a guy who, man, he could not stay sober. And this is a guy, I use him as an example all the time. Never got a DUI, never got arrested, never lost a job, never got divorced, plenty of money in the bank, cannot stop drinking. He was drunk all the time to the point where his kids would not let the grandkids go over to grandma and grandpa's house because they were afraid grandpa's going to hurt them. And I sit down with this guy, and he'd done the AA thing before, and he's like, man, I'm telling you, he goes, I'm just really desperate. He goes, I'm not here to make any effing friends. He goes, I just don't know. I can't stop drinking. And so he and I sat down, we went through the work. He had this transformative experience, and he's a good husband now. He's a great dad. His grandson is like his best friend. I mean, he and I talk all the time, and he's like, hey, I'm out playing ball with the grandson. We're doing this and that. And he's coming up on 10 years of sobriety, and it's pretty cool. But you see stuff like that, and it's just like, man, how could you not want to be some kind of part of this? I mean, to see this happen and the lives that get transformed, not just his life, but everybody that his life touches is different. And so I would say, man, you never know what God's going to do. I just keep showing up to try and help. And so, yeah, DAA. So in AA, I'll start with AA first. AA, we really needed some kind of book study or step study or something in our area. So we started a Joe and Charlie meeting basically in Margaret's living room. And it started with like 5 or 6 of us, and we would meet every week, and the girls would make some dinner, and we would all throw money in the basket for the next week's dinner. And but that meeting started growing. And one of our friends went down to Dallas, and he went to the PPG meeting, and he brought back this binder. And then we had been through Joe and Charlie a couple of times, and we're like, well, why don't we change the format of this meeting to a primary purpose group meeting? And we all agreed. So we started that. And next thing you know, we got 30 people in Margaret's living room, people sitting on the stairs, sitting on the floor. And we started looking for somewhere to go. And that guy I was just talking about that's coming up on 10 years sobriety, he was on fire for AA. He lives in Wisconsin, but he would come down here all the time. And he found us a church in the town right next to us. And we've been there for 8 years, I think. The church opened the doors to us, and that meeting has been going ever since, primary purpose group meeting. it's helped a lot of people, including myself. So it's my home group in AA. Now my home group in DAA is a Tuesday night. It's the RAW group, Refuge Through Altruism and Hope. It's the first meeting of Drug Addicts Anonymous in Illinois, and how that came to be was, you get involved in AA and you start traveling to different conferences and you meet a lot of people, so we met a lot of people. So we got friends everywhere. And I didn't know really anything about DAA. I heard one of my friends from Texas was talking about this DAA thing they got going on down there. And I was like, whatever. That's something you got going on down in Texas. I don't want to hear about it. And we got some friends up in Green Bay, and the DAA group in Madison, Wisconsin, got the bid to host the national conference in Milwaukee in 2022. And one of the speaker seekers there was looking for some panelists for the national conference. And he reached out to his buddy in Green Bay, who we happen to be friends with. And he said, well, why don't you see if Jason and Margaret will come do it? Okay. So he reached out to us, and we're like, okay. And I'm going into this conference, into this meeting. I'm going to speak on this panel, and I'm thinking, this is going to be a joke. This is going to be a joke. We're going on Friday. We got the hotel. I was like, well, at least it'll be a weekend up in Milwaukee. And we get there. And I don't know, they had like 10 different panels, 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, something like that. And man, every single panelist was talking about God, the 12 steps, and radical transformation in their life. And I was just like blown away. I'm like, holy crap. This is what Alcoholics Anonymous is supposed to look like. I fell in love with Drug Addicts Anonymous that weekend. And this gal and this guy, they were both in sober houses. They came up to the conference because we invited them to come, and they fell in love with Drug Addicts Anonymous. And they're like, we need to start a meeting in Illinois. And me and Martin are like, man, we got our hands full already. If you guys want to do it, we'll help. And but we got roped into doing this first one. So that fall of 2022, we opened the first Drug Addicts Anonymous meeting in Illinois. And through meeting all these different people in Madison, we've been to the conference in New Orleans and Texas, and we met some of the people who sit on the board of directors for DAA USA, which is, it's a very, very small new fellowship. So, you look at AA as like the mega, and kind of what we do in DAA is kind of similar to that. We don't have a world service office or anything like that. We just got a small group of people trying to get the ship straight. So we have a chairperson, a secretary, a treasurer. They asked me to be the archives chair, which is a lot easier than probably, collecting documents from the 1930s. Most of the stuff we do now is electronic, so most of it is filed away on the computer. And we do have some hard copies of some stuff, but so I am the National Archives Chair for Drug Addicts Anonymous. Margaret also holds a position on the board for the national. She is the conference chair for DAA USA. It's been a journey. Drug Addicts Anonymous is kind of cool because it's like you're a part of history. You know what I mean? This is like the early days of Drug Addicts Anonymous. They're having the 10th national conference of Drug Addicts Anonymous is happening this year in Orlando, and it's where the first Drug Addicts Anonymous conference. And when it first started, I think the conference had like 20 people. The first conference, national conference of Drug Addicts Anonymous, had like 10 people in Gainesville, Florida. Last year, the national conference was held in Austin, Texas. There was 500 attendees. So it's growing. It's growing little by slowly, but it's growing. There's about 260 meetings in the country right now. The fellowship started in Sweden and migrated to the U.S. in 2005 down in Texas. And it's real. There's meetings all over the southern part of the United States and up the East Coast. a lot of meetings in Wisconsin. We now have 4 meetings in Illinois, and it's it's just a place where a big part of my story is drugs. And I have the utmost respect for Alcoholics Anonymous and the singleness of purpose that I keep my comments as they pertain to alcoholism, but I can't share my whole story. And there's some people, especially in this day and age, man, these kids, it's a lot easier to get some opiates than it is to get a 6-pack of beer. So some of these kids come in here busted up and they can't stop getting high, man, but they have no history with alcohol, no experience with alcohol. How are they going to keep their comments as they pertain to alcohol when they have no experience with it? Where do these guys go? And they're like, I've talked to some others, they can go to this fellowship or that fellowship. It's like, man, no. They need the solution that we found, the solution that's outlined in the big book. So DAA in Sweden approached AA's World Services and asked them permission to adapt and adopt the 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous into traditions, and they gave us permission. So thus, it's the first 12-step fellowship that was formed outside the United States. I found that pretty fascinating, but anyway, it's growing, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
I think it's really cool, and I think, like you said, it's that nowadays. There was an old guy, Tom Wells, used to say, there's a screw to fit every nut, and most of us are cross-threaded, and drugs are a big part of my story too. And I think I find DEAA kind of really interesting because it's using the big book and it's new, and I love that you guys have been such a big part of it, and so I appreciate you sharing what you're doing on it. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't, Jason?
One of the things, so Margaret and I got married in 2020, right in the middle of a pandemic. It's pretty cool, man. We had hey babe, how many people did we invite? 230? Sure. Something like that. We had like 180 people in the middle of the pandemic.
She said, sure.
Something like that. And, but like I said, we both have the heart to help people. And so we had this idea, because we see there's a lot of different sober homes in our area. And kind of the idea of most of these places is, hey, we're going to get you for a little while. You know what I mean? And then we're going to shoot you out the door. So the house that I was on the board of directors was a recovery home. You know what I mean? Their emphasis was not on sobriety; it was on recovery. And if you were not actively involved in the process, you got to go. That was that kind of place. But they also we're going to get these busted up drunks off the street, out the treatment centers or wherever. We're going to hook them up with a sponsor. We're going to get them through the work. We're going to get them living a spiritual way of life, get them on solid ground, and then we're going to shoo them out of here. So it makes room for the next guys coming in. They just want to, churn them out like this. And what we started to see is that there's some of these guys who are coming into these sober places or recovery houses. They're getting well, and then they're being asked to leave because their time's up. But I don't know how it is down there in Tennessee, but up here, getting a 1-bedroom apartment, man, is a couple $1,000s. And these guys don't have the money. I was one of those guys. I came into the sober house with a duffel bag, man. Then I got a job making $15 an hour. It's barely enough to get by on. I mean, just living in a sober house, buying food. And so we saw this void that some people are just getting lost in the shuffle. They got nowhere to go when they come out of this thing. So we started a charity. It's Manna House Ministries, and it's really geared towards Christian community living for recovered alcoholics and drug addicts. So because we're so active in the community in the area, we get to see people who might fit that bill of what we're doing here. And, we might invite them to come be here. But it was a real pain in the butt getting all all the paperwork stuff together and getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted and all that stuff. But it's like, it's been a really cool experience. So it's not necessarily a sober home, but it is for drug addicts and alcoholics who have recovered, that are interested in living a spiritual way of life. And we just want to come alongside you and help you.
No, and I love that idea because it is a void, and it's beautiful that you guys are doing. Do you guys have a website?
It's under construction and under construction. Yeah, but we do. It's coming. Well,
we'll put a link to it when we get it.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
June 15th, it should be up.
Oh yeah, we definitely we'll put a link
cool
to it man, thank you so much. It's like it's been wonderful, and your story is so powerful. I mean, I think it's a testament to, like you said, you literally 28 years, 30 years trying to get sober, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and you found a way. You reached that turning point, and now you're helping others do the same, man. It's a powerful story. So thank you so much for sharing it, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah, man, absolutely. But I can't let you go without doing our rapid fire questions, my friend.
Okay. Okay.
No pressure.
Remember, 4 high schools in 2 years. Yeah, let's go.
I think you're pretty good, man. I think you're pretty good. You'll be all right with these. What is your favorite recovery slogan?
My favorite recovery slogan. Trust God, clean house, and help others, I suppose.
Yeah. What is your least favorite recovery slogan?
I got a lot of them. Stick around till the miracle happens. That's a horrible one. You know what? You didn't get sick overnight. You're not going to get well overnight. Take your time. Man, that kills me. Yeah, I don't like that one.
What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
Can I just say Jesus? There you go. Jesus.
If you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
Discover what alcoholism is. Because I just believe if you don't know what the problem is, the solution is always going to be off the table. You know, go out and find out what alcoholism is.
What song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
Thunder Kiss, 1965. Rob Zombie. My old snowboarding song.
Love it. If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
The resources to open more homes like this one.
What step do you love the most?
That's kind of a tricky question, because I love the promises of the steps the most. But yeah, it's when I first got well, step 1 was my number 1 favorite, because I knew that, hey, if you can help somebody understand the problem, that's half the damn battle, at least out of my own experience. But today, my favorite step by far is step 3.
What step do you love the least?
I mean, I love them all, but I guess if I had to pick one, I don't know, shit. Step 2, maybe. And the only reason step 2, because I hear people say they're working on step 2. I'm like, man, you're not working on step 2. You don't understand step 1. You got step one problem, buddy. I mean, I love all the steps. It's such a simple process that we complicate. I love them all.
Fair enough, man. What is one of your favorite movies?
The Usual Suspects.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I've shared this many times, man. I believe there's going to come a day that I stand before my Maker to give an account for my life. And I believe the first thing he's going to do is look over my shoulder to see who I brought with me. Well done, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I like that image of looking over our shoulders to see who we brought with us. I like that image, man. Thank you so much, Jay. Man, thank you for it's been an honor, brother.
Thanks
and for the rest of you out there, man, if this episode meant something to you, please share it with one person who needs some hope today. A new episode of the Cup of Joe Show drops every Thursday at noon. You can listen anytime at thecupofjoeshow.net or one of your favorite podcast apps, Podbean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." And if you're looking for your daily encouragement in your recovery journey, subscribe to our friends at thedailyponderables.com, delivering inspiration to your inbox every morning. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share because someone out there needs to hear this today. Have a good day, everybody.
It's just a laid-back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's Experience, Strength, and Hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to the Cup of Joe Show.